Imagine getting a root canal. You're lying back in the chair.
Right, just waiting for the drill.
Exactly. And even with like modern science, the numbing gel, local anesthesia, your heart is still just pounding.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly invasive procedure, right? You're dealing with an exposed nerve root deep inside your jawbone.
Yeah.
We have entire medical facilities dedicated entirely to keeping that one specific procedure, sterile, precise, and like as painless as biologically possible.
Right. Now, I want you to strip away the sterile clinic, strip away the anesthesia, the high-tech drill, and, well, the trained specialists.
Okay.
Put yourself on the deck of a violently swaying wooden ship. You are in the middle of a massive maritime storm.
Oh, wow.
The floor beneath you is pitching sideways, the wind is screaming, freezing rain is lashing your face, and the dentist standing over you isn't holding a sterile microtool.
No.
He is holding a rusty spoon.
And he's about to start digging.
Yeah. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are pulling apart a really fascinating piece of audio from an episode of Brick Buccaneers, specifically episode 2.
Right.
And our mission today is to take a classic, beloved pop culture image that we all have, like permanently burned into our brains, and completely dismantle it using the incredibly grim historical reality.
It's so interesting because we have this psychological need to romanticize history,
Oh, totally.
We take these brutal, genuinely painful realities of the past and we sort of filter them through this lens of like costume design. We transform these medical nightmares into stylish, glamorous character traits.
Right. So think about the quintessential Hollywood pirate. You picture the dramatic coat, the tricorn hat, the yelling "Arr!"
Yeah.
from the helm of a ship.
Yeah.
And what is the very first thing that catches the light when they smile? It's a gleaming, perfectly placed gold tooth.
Exactly.
We see that and we immediately think of wealth, rebellion, and the sort of, swashbuckling swagger.
Right, because it implies a choice. It implies that this rogue plundered a Spanish galleon, took a solid gold doubloon, and just decided to wear his wealth right there in his smile.
Yeah.
It's an intimidation tactic. I mean, it's pure style.
But the audio excerpt we're diving into today completely ruins that illusion.
It really does.
That flashy golden grin wasn't a fashion statement. It was a total, absolute dental disaster.
Yeah.
And to understand how drastically wrong our cinematic archetype is, we have to look at the actual visual reality of a pirate's mouth.
Right.
The Brick Buccaneers episode uses this brilliant, surprisingly effective toy analogy to map this out for us.
And I love that because juxtaposing a horrific historical reality with a children's toy is like a fantastic way to bypass our usual defenses.
It really is.
It forces us to visualize the destruction in a completely new way.
Yeah. So, okay, picture a Lego pirate captain. He's swinging onto the wooden deck. And he's got that classic wide grin painted on his little yellow plastic face.
Oh.
But instead of a sparkling gold-printed smile, his teeth look like a row of tiny, broken Lego bricks. Just jagged, shattered, completely ruined plastic studs.
I mean, think about the structural integrity of a shattered Lego brick. It's not just a surface blemish, right?
Sure.
The foundation is completely compromised.
Right.
That playful imagery actually captures the horrifying truth of their anatomy. The decay wasn't just a simple cavity that needed filling. It was total structural collapse.
Yeah, the excerpt actually drops a quote that, honestly, it stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, about the sea monster.
Yes. It states that an actual pirate's mouth was so gruesome it could literally scare off a sea monster.
Which is wild.
I mean, we've all seen the old maritime maps with the terrifying artist renderings of the Kraken and the Leviathan, right?
Yeah.
These massive beasts with rows of razor-sharp fangs.
And yet, a human mouth in the 1700s was arguably the more terrifying visual.
Just crazy.
It is. That's a really visceral way of explaining the sheer necrosis happening inside their jaws. I mean, we are talking about blackened, rotting stumps, inflamed tissue. Yeah. And a level of decay that would be visually shocking even to a seasoned surgeon today.
Okay, let's unpack this. I'm hung up on the mechanics here.
Okay.
If Hollywood made the whole bling style up entirely, and their real teeth look like a row of shattered plastic blocks, what was the actual daily routine on a ship that caused this level of destruction?
Right.
I mean, people lived for thousands of years before modern dentistry without their jaws completely disintegrating at sea. What was the specific biological cause here?
Well, you don't get teeth that look like broken Lego bricks overnight simply by forgetting to brush,
Right.
You have to look at the environment they were trapped in. The audio points directly to their lifestyle factors, specifically an environment that was fundamentally hostile to human health.
Yeah.
Dental care on a pirate ship was essentially non-existent. The excerpt compares the rarity of dental care to finding a clean bathroom.
Yeah, let's escalate that comparison. Because a dirty modern bathroom is unpleasant. A dirty wooden ship in the 18th century is a biological hazard zone.
Oh, absolutely.
They were living in these damp, cramped quarters, sharing every airborne pathogen with zero access to fresh water for basic sanitation.
Right.
And the excerpt highlights a uniquely toxic combination driving this decay. Heavy rum consumption paired with absolutely zero toothbrushes.
Yeah, and that phrase, zero toothbrushes, it goes beyond just a lack of tools. It represents a total absence of mechanical cleaning.
Right.
But the rum is the real catalyst here. You know, when we think of rum today, we think of a cocktail mixer.
Yeah, like a mojito or something.
Exactly. But in the context of maritime history, rum was an essential daily ration. It was heavily consumed, highly concentrated, and packed with sugar.
So they're basically coating their mouths in liquid sugar multiple times a day.
Constantly. And from a biological perspective, sugar is the primary fuel source for the bacteria that naturally live in the human mouth.
Okay.
When you bathe those bacteria in rum, they gorge on the sugar and excrete acid as a byproduct.
Ugh.
And that acid just sits directly on the enamel of the teeth and begins to dissolve it.
And because they have zero toothbrushes, there is nothing scraping that bacterial film away.
Yep.
It just builds and builds into these massive colonies. But it wasn't just the sugar rotting the enamel from the outside, was it? The diet at sea is notoriously horrific.
Right, you're hitting on the compounding factor. They survived on hardtack, salted meats, and a diet completely devoid of fresh fruits or vegetables.
So scurvy.
Exactly. Without vitamin C, they inevitably developed scurvy, and scurvy fundamentally stops the human body from producing collagen.
And collagen is the glue. It's what keeps our skin, our joints, and our gums together.
Precisely. So the literal mortar holding their teeth into their jawbone was dissolving from the inside out,
Wow.
while the acid from the rum bacteria was eating the teeth from the outside in.
That is just a perfect storm of gross.
It really is. The gums would swell, turn purple, and recede, exposing the vulnerable roots of the teeth to the harsh maritime air and the sugary rum.
Yeah, the excerpt notes that because of all these compounding factors, pirates' teeth rotted away even faster than their wooden legs.
Which is saying something.
Yeah. I mean, a wooden leg is dead timber, constantly exposed to corrosive salt spray in ocean water. And human bone was decaying faster than that.
It's a testament to how aggressive the bacterial infection in their mouths had become.
Think about how gross your mouth feels after just one long overnight flight without brushing.
Oh, yeah.
You know that feeling? You've been breathing recycled airplane air you haven't brushed in 12 hours, and you have that fuzzy, sticky film coating your teeth.
It's the worst.
All you want is to find a sink. Now imagine multiplying that fuzzy feeling by months at sea.
Oh, man.
You are washing that fuzz down with sugary rum, and your only daily routine, your only attempt at cleaning this disaster zone is a swish of salt water. The audio literally asks, now who's ready for their daily swish of salt water?
Which is entirely useless from a hygiene standpoint, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Salt water might have mild astringent properties, but it does not remove plaque. It does not scrape away the bacterial colonies.
So it's doing nothing.
It's essentially just adding ocean brine to an already necrotic environment.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
If their mouths were rotting that fast,
Oh.
and they had no hygiene, and they're living in a state of constant agonizing decay,
Yeah.
how did the gold teeth actually get there in the first place? If it wasn't for fashion, what was the practical purpose of the gold?
Well, it originated strictly as a last resort medical filling.
Okay.
Dealing with rapidly rotting teeth forces a confrontation with shipboard medical care. The gold tooth wasn't a prize, it was a desperate, agonizing intervention.
Wow.
When a tooth shattered or the cavity became so deep that the nerve was constantly exposed to the air and the rum, the pain would become debilitating.
Debilitating to the point where they would willingly submit to the procedure described in this excerpt.
Yes.
I really want to lean into the visceral mechanics of this because the reality is staggering. These fillings were not being carefully molded and placed by trained professionals.
Not at all.
The gold was being hammered in by shipmates.
Hammered into an infected, compromised jawbone.
The audio uses a brilliant piece of dark humor here. It notes that the crewmates performing this procedure had all the surgical skills of a toddler with a toy hammer.
Yeah, that's a vivid image.
Have you ever watched a toddler try to fix something?
Oh, yeah.
There is no finesse. There is no understanding of leverage or anatomy. It is just blind, uncoordinated brute force.
Well, think about the physics of what they were attempting. You were taking a blunt piece of metal, placing it over an exposed, highly sensitive root, and striking it.
Oh my
At
God.
the foundation, the jawbone and the surrounding gum tissue is already rotting from scurvy and bacterial infection.
Right.
Hammering a piece of crude gold into an infected jaw without proper surgical anchoring is like trying to hammer a heavy iron nail into a piece of wet, rotting drywall.
Just going to crumble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The structural integrity just isn't there to hold it.
You are relying on pure friction in a space filled with blood and pus to hold a piece of metal in someone's head.
Yeah.
And the person swinging the hammer is likely a crewmate who has also been drinking the rum.
Which brings us back to the rusty spoon.
Yes, the most terrifying analogy in the entire excerpt. Imagine getting a root canal in the middle of a storm, performed with a rusty spoon.
Because to place a piece of gold into a rotting tooth, you first have to clear out the necrotic tissue.
Right.
You have to dig out the dead or dying nerve to make room for the metal. Otherwise, the pressure of the filling would cause unbearable agony.
And today, a specialist uses precision microfiles to carefully hollow out the root canal.
Exactly. But a pirate surgeon, or just the ship's cook, is using whatever metal instrument they have on hand.
A rusty spoon.
A rusty spoon, a dull knife, digging blindly into the root of the tooth while the ship is pitching violently beneath them in a storm.
The risk of sepsis alone is astronomical.
Oh, for sure. You are introducing rust and maritime bacteria directly into the bloodstream through the jawbone. The sheer threshold of pain required to consent to that procedure is difficult for a modern mind to comprehend. The cure was a rusty spoon digging into your skull.
Yeah.
That means the disease, the constant throbbing of the rotting tooth, must have been unbearable.
The gold tooth completely shifts from being a symbol of immense wealth and freedom to a symbol of surviving trauma.
It really does.
The scars are horrific medical intervention.
And highly ineffective intervention at that. Because they lacked the materials and the anatomical knowledge to properly anchor the metal, the fix was incredibly fragile.
Right.
It wasn't a permanent, solid solution that allowed them to suddenly bite into apples again.
To drive home the futility of this crude dentistry, the Brick Buccaneers excerpt brings up one final visual with our Lego pirate.
Okay.
Picture him again. He has survived the toddler with the toy hammer. He survived the rusty spoon. He has his crude piece of gold wedged into his jaw.
Yeah.
He sits down at the captain's table and tries to bite into a plastic turkey leg.
He attempts to use the tooth for its intended biological purpose.
But because the surrounding bone is rotting drywall and the metal is just wedged in with blind force, the moment he applies bite pressure to that plastic turkey leg, his gold tooth pops right out.
Just fails completely.
It just bounces away across the wooden deck. Bing, ping, ping.
It perfectly undercuts the tough guy myth, doesn't it?
Totally.
The expectation is that the gold tooth was a permanent, menacing fixture of their persona. But the physical reality is that the metal was lightly falling out constantly.
Yeah.
Every time they chewed, every time they ground their teeth, they risked dislodging it.
It's almost a comedic image, right? Trying to take a bite of your dinner and having your tough guy boom, bounce across the floorboards.
Right.
But underneath the comedy is a layer of endless frustration and recurring pain. You endure the rusty spoon only for the fix to fail the very next day.
It really emphasizes the desperation of their environment. They were trapped in a cycle of decay and crude failing interventions.
So, we have journeyed all the way from the polished, costume design Hollywood myth down to the unpolished bacterial horror of maritime history.
We certainly have.
And the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive completely changes how we should view pirate lore.
Absolutely.
The gold tooth wasn't a fashion statement. It wasn't a sign that you had excess gold to spare. It was a desperate, agonizing fix for a rotting mouth caused by rum and zero hygiene.
It was a desperate medical necessity born out of a uniquely terrible environment.
The excerpt brilliantly summarizes this entirely shifted perspective. So the next time you find yourself dreaming of pirate treasure, remember that the real loot wasn't a heavy chest full of gold doubloons.
No, definitely not.
The real treasure, the most valuable item you could possibly possess on that ship, was a working toothbrush.
Which is something we take for granted. We wake up every morning and night, walk to a sink with clean running water, and use scientifically engineered bristles and fluoride paste to prevent our jaws from collapsing.
It's true.
We take a miracle of modern preventative medicine completely for granted.
So what does this all mean for you? Take a moment today to truly appreciate your modern dentist.
Please do.
Appreciate the sterile tools, the local anesthesia, and the years of medical school. Be incredibly grateful that your next checkup will not involve a shipmate coming at you with a toddler's toy hammer or a rusty spoon in the middle of a hurricane.
A little gratitude for modern science goes a long way.
Yeah.
But, looking at how successfully Hollywood managed to flip the narrative on this, it leaves a lingering question.
Oh, what's the question?
Well, if pop culture was able to take a horrific, agonizing, and truly desperate dental intervention, the reality of rotting mouths, scurvy, and rusty spoons, and completely rebrand it as a glamorous symbol of wealth and roguish charm,
Yeah.
what other cool historical fashion statements that we admire today are actually just covering up a painful, desperate medical reality of the past?
Oh, wow. That completely changes how I'm going to watch period dramas from now on.
Right.
I'm going to be analyzing every piece of jewelry and clothing, wondering what nightmare it's hiding.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the myths, and seriously, go brush your teeth.